The light from the phone screen seemed especially glaring in the dimly lit living room. I stared at that familiar number in my call log, my fingertips icy cold. Today is the anniversary of my marriage to Huo Ningxu. On the table was the candlelit dinner, it carefully prepared all afternoon. The steak had long since lost its perfect temperature, and the red wine had faded from its original rich aroma. Like a fool, I'd been waiting here for him 6 whole hours. The phone finally rang. It was him. Huo Ningxu. My voice carried a trace of trembling and anticipation. Trembling and anticipation that even I hadn't noticed. On the other end of the phone came his usual cool, even slightly impatient tone and busy. Just get to the point if you've got something to say. Today is our wedding anniversary, summoning all my courage. I tried to coax even a hint of warmth back into his voice. Before I could finish speaking, a woman's sweet and teasing voice suddenly came through the phone, so clear it seemed to explode. Aishu, my skin has been really dry lately. Hurry over and help me apply some body lotion. My back is just out of reach. In that instant, my hand trembled violently, and my phone nearly fell to the ground. So it turns out that what he called busy was just spending time with another woman, rubbing body lotion on her. Beep, beep, beep. He hung up the phone decisively, without the slightest hesitation. As I looked at the table full of cold dishes, I suddenly burst into laughter, laughing so hard that tears streamed down my face. It turned out that 5 years of deep affection had been nothing more than a joke in his eyes. Before long, my best friends inland sent me a voice message. Heard on urgent. Wan, you'd better check Weibo right now. A foreboding feeling welled up inside me. I opened Weibo, and 3 trending searches about Huo Ningxu immediately took the top spot. The president of Huo Group caught kissing a famous female celebrity at a certain hotel. President of Huo Group engages in a passionate kiss with well-known female celebrity at restaurant. Rumors of marital rift emerged to win over the beautiful woman. President of Huo Group shells out $50 million to purchase a luxurious mansion. The female protagonist in the photo is Muchushi. That familiar voice belongs to the female celebrity Muchushi too. No wonder I thought the voice sounded so familiar. During my 4 years in college and 1 year of marriage, I'd been chasing him for a full 5 years. Yet on our wedding anniversary, he was with the very person I hated most. No wonder HED always refused to touch me. Turns out all his tenderness had gone to someone else. I wiped away my tears, hesitated for a moment, and then dialed his phone again. No one answered. Him hitting again. Still no one answers. On the 3rd try, the call was finally answered, and his icy, furious voice boomed through the line. You'd better have something important to say, otherwise. Huo Ningxu, let's get divorced. When I said those words, I actually felt a sense of relief. The other person was clearly taken aback and fell silent for a few seconds. Fine. Don't back out. I gave myself a self-deprecating smile and said, don't worry, it won't happen again this time. I placed the signed divorce agreement on the table, then turned back briefly before leaving to take one more look. Thoughtful as I was, I sent him a photo along with a note. Remember to drop by and sign it when you have time, and while you're at it, head over to the Civil Affairs Bureau to pick up your divorce certificate. The door clicked shut, putting a bittersweet full stop to my 5-year relationship. I crouched by the doorway, my arms wrapped tightly around myself, my head buried deep in my knees. A profound sense of emptiness washed over me, as if it were about to swallow me whole. What? So you've licked yourself clean of everything and now you've been kicked out too? A familiar voice pierced through the mournful air, reaching straight to my heart. I looked up, my eyes blurred with tears, and gazed at the figure standing against the backlight. With a pitiful expression, I asked Shimoyan, could you take me in? I don't want to be alone right now. He didn't agree right away. Instead, he opened the door all by himself. My heart suddenly sank. Over all these years, out of fear that Huo Ningxu might misunderstand, I've kept my distance from Shimoy, the childhood playmate who used to put me first in everything. It seems he really has decided not to have anything more to do with me. What's the matter? Are you planning to stand guard at the door for me tonight instead of coming in? Himoya narrowed his slender eyes slightly, his tone laced with a hint of teasing. I finally realized what was going on. My eyebrows and eyes lighting up with delight. But just as I started to stand up, my spirits sank again. I blinked at him innocently. My legs are numb. Before the words had even finished, Hid already lifted me into the air. Hid always been incredibly strong. Carrying me was never the slightest bit of effort for him. This is the last time, don't ever come back to me if you're abandoned by someone who can't see again. Although her tone was harsh and fierce, it stirred waves of warmth in my heart. No way, never again, I promised. For some reason, as I gazed at the person standing right in front of me, someone who was completely filled with me, I suddenly felt my eyes well up with tears. I've always known he liked me and that he could be incredibly cruel. After getting hurt again and again by Huo Ningzhu, I kept coming back to him to heal my wounds. He once said that if I married Huo Ningzhu, Hid stopped waiting for me right where we were. I thought he was really gone. Fortunately, Hid is still here. Stumbling and fumbling, I finally realized that he was the one who cared about me the most. The scene shifts, and Chimoyan and I have just gotten our marriage certificate. All he posted on Weibo and in his moments was news about us getting our marriage certificate. And so, as the acting emperor he was, his Weibo account instantly went viral. Chimoyan wrapped his arms around my waist from behind and whispered into my ear, "Let me hear you call me husband." English. I blushed and shyly dodged, stammering as I called out H-honey. As soon as she finished speaking, her face instantly turned bright red. Chimoyan turned me around with satisfaction and left a deep kiss on my lips. Then, an ear-piercing phone ring startled me awake from my sweet dream. Zinlan's urgent voice came through. Wan. Hurry and check Weibo. Everyone online is talking about how Huo Ningzhu has called off the engagement with you. After hanging up the phone, I finally came to my senses and quickly opened Weibo. His group pair breaks off engagement with fiancé. Is it all of triangle? This headline has topped the trending list. The following comments are downright appalling. Everyone says this match minus up will never work after all. The Wen family is bankrupt, and the Hu family is socially and economically mismatched. They're bound to fall out sooner or later. Paparazzi have caught Hu Ningzhu secretly meeting Muchushi many times, proving that Hu Ningzhu doesn't like Wenwan at all. It was actually Wenwan who kept chasing after Hu Ningzhu all along. According to insiders, Wenwan has been clinging on to Hu Ningzhu like a desperate sycophant ever since her first year of college. No way, that's really embarrassing for us girls. In the comments, most of them were critical remarks directed at me, harshly criticizing my writing and arguments. Wen's family went bankrupt, Huo Mu had a secret rendezvous, and the Huo family called off the engagement. These pieces of news hit my brain like a bolt from the blue. My phone rang, and when I looked closely, I saw it was Huo Ningzhu calling. Wenwan, just letting you know, your wish has been granted, and our engagement is hereby cancelled. The other party hung up the phone after finishing speaking. I clutched my heavy head at this moment. The boundary between dream and reality had left my mind in complete chaos. After a long while, my thoughts gradually became clear. Yesterday, I received an anonymous photo. The couple kissing in the photo turned out to be Huo Ningzhu and Muchushi. Heartbroken, I drank a bit of alcohol. While still slightly drunk, I called Huo Ningzhu and told him I wanted to call off the engagement, then hung up on him with absolute authority. Then, I had a very, very long dream. I dreamed that I married and then divorced Huo Ningzhu, and later went on to marry Chimoyan. Good. Was that just a dream? Why do I always have the illusion that it was my past life? When I was in college, I became curious about the cold and melancholy Huo Ningzhu, and with a motherly heart, I began to pay attention to and care about him. Later, thanks to the Huo family's kindness toward the Wen family, they successfully arranged for me to become engaged to Huo Ningzhu. After we became engaged, I became even more determined to chase after him relentlessly. But somehow at some point, I found myself seeing disgust in Huo Ningxue's eyes, and his friends nearby began to mock and sneer at me. I thought maybe I just haven't done well enough yet. They say that when a woman pursues a man, there's always a layer of gauze between them, but I've always firmly believed that as long as I don't give up, I can warm even the coldest heart. But shortly after I graduated, the skies seemed to fall on my head. My parents passed away unexpectedly, and the company I worked for went bankrupt. As a result, I inherited the villa and was also forced to take on a massive debt of 50 million yuan. 50 million. Given my current plight, you'll never be able to pay it off in a lifetime. Wan, is it true that you've called off your engagement with Huo Ningzhu? Then Lan sent another voice message, pressing for an answer once again. In just 3 short hours, the news of the cancelled engagement had spread throughout the entire city of Chongqing. I replied, really? It was me who first proposed calling off the engagement. Yet now it's suddenly me who's been abandoned. Huo Ningzhu, whether in dreams or in reality, you're still just as heartless toward me. The phone rang again. This time, it was the club manager. Xiaowen, hurry over and help out. There's an important guest coming tonight, so absolutely don't be late. Okay, Sister G. Xiaowen, this is the wine ordered by room no. 1 in Huangting. Hurry up and deliver it over there. Great. I took the wine and pushed open the door, just in time to hear someone calling my name. Young Master Huo, are you not still being bothered by that vain woman, Wenwan, are you? The speaker was a man whose voice sounded just like Kuzeyu. Honingzhu's sycophantic lackey. The light inside was slightly dim, and to avoid being spotted, he'd been keeping my head lowered ever since I stepped through the door. Hello, here's your drink. I set down the bottle and turned around, eager to leave quickly. Wait, I was called out, and my steps came to an uneasy halt. The man said in happily, What's wrong with you, waiter? Didn't you see that we need more wine? I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Thankfully, I hadn't been discovered. I lowered my head and turned around to pour wine for them one by one. They've already called off the engagement. How could she possibly still have the nerve to keep pestering young Master Huo? You really don't know that? That woman has an incredibly thick skin. Back in college, she'd even go so far as to barge into boys' dorm rooms just to see Huo Ningxu. No way, that's really shameless. I couldn't help but startled dead memories surfaced once more. That time, I overheard Muchushi chatting with someone about how Huo Ningzhu had collapsed from an injury in the dormitory. In a moment of panic, I slipped into the boys' dormitory and noticed while the dorm supervisor wasn't paying attention. But when I rushed inside, I realized that Huo Ningzhu hadn't fainted at all. In the dorm room, several guys were playing a game with their upper bodies bare. At my appearance, they all turned to stare at me in unison. I finally realized that Muchushi had deliberately said that just to tease me. At that moment, Kuzeyu took the lead in heckling me, saying I was shameless. Even Huo Ningzhu's gaze toward me was filled with disgust. As she pondered, her hand paused for a long moment while pouring the wine, and the wine inadvertently spilled over from the glass. What's wrong with you? You can't even pour a glass of wine properly. Do you know how expensive this wine is? Watch out, I'll file a complaint about you. Someone snapped sharply. I quickly apologized. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Lift your hand. That familiar commanding voice echoed in my ears. I hesitated for a moment, staring toward the door, wondering whether I should rush out right away. Hey, lift your head. Ningzhu's cold voice rang out once more. I had no choice but to slowly look up. As our eyes met, the other person's gaze was sharp and piercing. You've been following me? I opened my mouth, but hadn't yet had time to explain. He issued another warning. We've already called off the engagement. Don't do something so humiliating. Price drop. I couldn't help but chuckle. HES always thought of me, when Mon as a cheap woman has tea. I put down the bottle and took a step back. I don't have one, please, mister. Wow, that'd be so narcissistic. If you hadn't been following me, I never would've guessed why you showed up. Ho Ningju's proud expression made me chuckle inwardly. Of course, he couldn't possibly imagine what I'm going through now. Who doesn't know you've been relentlessly pursuing young Master Huo for years? Now that you've been dumped, you're even willing to pretend to be a waiter just to hold on to him truly, when it comes to being shameless. You're unbeatable. This sycophant is just a sycophant. When one, I never would have thought you could be so shameless. Unpleasant words came pouring in one after another. I glanced at Huo Ningzhu. He casually swirled the red wine in his hand, remaining utterly unmoved. From college until now, HES consistently tolerated anyone belittling me, never saying a single word in my defense, not even a single syllable. I asked him, "Are you saying it was you who called off our engagement?" He didn't look at me and simply said, "The engagement is off." So what if it was cancelled? Who withdrew first anyway? I think I finally understood. Hey, young Master Huo, worried that if word got out about the disgraced young lady calling off the engagement, both the Huo family and he himself would be ridiculed. So he chose to twist the truth and turn black into white. He scoffed and shifted my gaze. Fine. The arranged marriage between you and me was settled by our parents when they were still alive, back when your family as patriarch was still around. Now that our family has gone bankrupt, if you think I'm no longer good enough for you and decide to unilaterally break off the engagement, then that's a breach of contract on your part. I reached out to him, handed over. He stared at me in astonishment. What? Penalty fees and compensation for emotional distress? Oh, not much. Just 50 million will do. 50 million? Oh, why don't you just go rob someone? Do you even think you're worth 50 million? Guzeyu, standing beside him, glanced at me with disdain. It's him again. How could Ningxu dislike me so much? His contribution to it is undeniable. An inexplicable surge of anger shot straight to the top of my head. In the past, I used to like Huo Ningxu. I put up with him. But now, Huo Ningxu means absolutely nothing to me. And I just don't want to be disgusted by this sycophant anymore. Your master hasn't even said anything yet. Why are you so anxious for him? You dirty bitch. How dare you insult me? Guzeyu, furious with anger, raised his hand and slapped me. Guzi, why a slap didn't land on my face as unexpectedly as it anticipated. I opened my eyes in confusion and was surprised to see Shimoyan gripping Guzi Wya's wrist. Shimo Nayan. How did he end up here? What names you? Keep your dog under control. Don't let him bite people randomly. Shimo's handsome face, with its delicate features and upright posture, seemed to loom infinitely large before me, filling my entire pupils. At this moment, his image in my heart suddenly soared to a new height. How blind was I back then to pass up a man who was both so secure and incredibly handsome, and instead chase after that blind, worthless jerk. Who named you? Oh, Nyan. It was when one who spoke disrespectfully first, Muchushi, who had been watching the scene for so long beside Huo Ningxu, finally spoke up after Shimoy's arrival. She used to maliciously slander me back in college, and now that I've fallen into such a miserable state, she'll certainly seize every opportunity to put me down. Don't call me that. I'm not familiar with you. Shimo didn't spare her even half a bit of consideration. Muchu, she blushed deeply and said, Shimoyan, we're at least a rumored couple. Do you really have to treat me this way? That's right. Recently, Muchu, she and Shimoyan collaborated on a drama, and the internet is flooded with press releases about their new project. There are even rumors that the two are in a romantic relationship. Seeing Shimo and Ian's resentful gaze, I suddenly had a bold idea. Has she been targeting me all these years? Could it be because she's secretly in love with Shimoyan and can't stand to see Shimoyan being nice to me? Huh. What does Nahu Ningxu even mean to her? Mr. Huo. I remember now. Guzeyu suddenly shouted. Last year on your birthday was Shimoyan who took Wenwan away. Mr. Huo, see. I was right all along. This Wenwan is a flirtatious woman, constantly clinging to you while simultaneously flirting with Shimoyan. She's really despicable. So, on Ho Ningxu's birthday last year, I got completely drunk. And in the end, it was Shi Moyan who took me home. It always assumed that guy was Huo Ningxu. Because of this, I once thought he was as heartless toward me as he seemed on the surface. Perhaps he just didn't like having his marriage arranged by others. Unexpectedly from beginning to end, I never once warmed his heart. But why has Shi Moyan never told me any of this? I glanced at Shi Moyan and saw him pick up a glass of wine and suddenly pour it straight onto Gu Ziyu's face. Instantly, the entire venue fell completely silent. Shi Moyan put down his wine glass, his eyes filled with a fierce glare. Huo Ningxu, are you still a man? Even if you dislike Wen more than anything, please don't allow such scum to slander her. Well, Fu Ziyu, drenched in the liquid, finally came to his senses and, furious, stepped forward to grab Shi Moyan by the collar. Shi Moyan, you've only won a Golden Rooster award. What's so special about that? Don't think I'm afraid of you. Shi Moyan didn't get upset at all. Instead, he spoke coldly. I'm hardly someone worth boasting about, but my Shi family, as one of the 4 great families of Yuchang, is no pushover either. I'll make this perfectly clear today when Wan is mine. If anyone dares to gossip about her again, it'll see to it that they can never set foot in Yuchang again. Having finished speaking, he glanced indifferently at Huo Ningxu, then turned around, took my hand, and walked away. Looking at his back as he held my hand and walked away, I had the strange feeling of having returned to a dream. Honey, it's so good to have you. Whether in dreams or in reality, he has always been like this, unable to bear even the slightest bit of injustice toward me. If everything in my dream was from a past life, then in this life, him definitely sticking with him. What did you just call me? Shi Moyan halted his steps and turned around, staring steadily at me. I gazed into his bright, sparkling eyes and blurted out once again, honey, in my dreams. Whenever our intimacy reached its peak, Hed always eagerly pinned me down on the bed, urging me again and again to call him husband. That cursed? At that moment, he narrowed his eyes slightly to look at me, and I immediately guessed this would be his reaction. The next second, I slowly leaned toward him and kissed him deeply on the lips. You've always been my husband, though that was just in a dream. Shi Moyan narrowed his eyes slightly, then turned around and pressed me against the wall, his eyes glowing with a faint, eerie light. Oh, you're the one who said that. Me reflected in his pupil smiled brightly. Yeah, I said it. Time seemed to freeze in an instant, and I could clearly feel his heart pounding away, thump minus thump. After a long while, the astonishment in his eyes faded, and a clear calmness returned to the depths of his gaze. Wan, do you think I'm completely clueless? What? He turned his face away, his tone tinged with annoyance. You're upset about Huo Ningxu's broken engagement, so you've come to take it out on me. What do you think I am? I stared at him, utterly bewildered and at a loss for words. Does he think I'm making fun of him? I didn't. I'm telling the truth. Shi Moyan, don't leave. What am I going to do if you leave? Shi Moyan suddenly paused mid-minus step, and I accidentally bumped into his firm back. Ouch, I wrapped my injured bridge of the nose, and tears were almost welling up in my eyes. What do you mean? What'll you do if I leave? He asked, frowning in confusion. My heart felt guilty, and I lowered my head, not daring to look at him. I just gently tugged at the corner of his shirt. It's just the landlord kicked me out, and I'm begging you to let me stay. When Wan, you're supposed to be Huo Ningxu's fiancé, how can you be living such a miserable life? Shi Moyan wore an expression of exasperation, as if he couldn't believe his iron wasn't turning into steel. Actually, I've also thought about this question. I had originally thought that Huo Ningxu didn't like me, but at least he wouldn't hate me. I'm tall and good minus looking, and my external qualities are certainly not bad. Although one's group doesn't quite measure up to Huo's group, it at least enjoys considerable fame in Yuchang. Logically speaking, even if the Wen family went bankrupt, as long as the marriage contract remains valid, the Huo family would never treat me badly. But in fact, Huo Ningxu never cared about how I was doing. A few hours ago, there was absolutely no connection left between him and me. So, what? We've been childhood sweethearts, wearing the same pair of pants from day one, so you've got to treat me like family. I spoke with confidence and conviction, yet only I knew how deeply I was in the wrong. During my 4 years in college, fearing that Huo Ningxu might misunderstand me, I chose to keep my distance from Shimoyan, so much so that Shimoyan and I hadn't been in touch for years. In the end, after the Wen family went bankrupt and I found myself chased by creditors, I felt too ashamed to even ask Shimoyan for help. Shimoyan walked to the passenger seat and pulled open the door. Get in. I looked at him in astonishment, then nodded with delight. Turns out that no matter how much I go too far, he'll never just leave me alone. Oh no. Oh no. I'm going to be late for work. I picked up my phone and saw that the alarm had been turned off. It actually slept until 5 in the afternoon. Shimoyan, why did you turn off my alarm? Before I had time to complain too much, I quickly got up and washed my face. The culprit ignored what I said, put the script aside, and once again wore an expression of exasperation. You've been working as a waiter in that kind of place ever since you graduated? No. I deliver food during the day and only go to the Royal Court Club at night. The other person's eyes widened even more. Wenwan, can't you show a little ambition? You're at least a college graduate from a 211 university. How could you show a little ambition? Shimoyan was so furious he couldn't utter another word. I casually tied my hair back and squeezed a few drops of skincare cream onto my face, smearing it all over haphazardly. You don't understand. During the day, I deliver food. At night, I work as a waiter and bartender at a club. Combined, I can earn quite a bit each month, way more than just sitting around in an office, serving tea and doing odd jobs for others, with 50 million in debt. If I didn't do this, I'm afraid I'd end up starving to death. I can't exactly go become the mistress of some sleazy guy, even though that'd bring in money fast. How could someone who graduated from a 211 university possibly be doing menial tasks? Shimoyan frowned, suspecting that I was joking with him. Before Wen's family went bankrupt, perhaps wealthy and socially prominent young ladies wouldn't have, but ordinary girls certainly would. This is my experience of hitting dead ends while searching for a high-paying job. In the blink of an eye, the more I thought about it, the angrier I became. No way, I can't just let Huo Ningxu get off that easily. I'm going to demand a breakup fee from him. The marriage contract was secured by the Wen family's kindness and generosity. Now that the engagement has been called off, Huo should pay up to make amends. Repaying kindness with gratitude, that's a traditional Chinese virtue. No way. Shimoyan grabbed both of my arms, his voice tinged with a hint of dominance. You've already called off your engagement with Huo Ningxu, so there's no need for you to see each other again. But 50 million. It'll be incredibly hard for me to ever pay that off in my lifetime. I've already asked my assistant to help you pay off the debt. Shimoyan handed me to vouch as proofs of settlement issued by the creditor. I was taken aback for a moment, then immediately hugged him excitedly. Shimoy, and you're such a kind, minus-hearted person. A hint of smugness flickered in his eyes, and he even cleared his throat deliberately. From now on, your current creditor is me, so just start thinking about how you'll work like a slave to pay off your debt. I hooked my hands around his neck, smiling softly in his eyes. How about paying off the debt with my body? You. If you keep making jokes like this, I'll start taking them seriously. Shimoyan's voice was low and deep, and his gaze gradually grew hotter and more intense. The deep affection in his eyes was utterly unhidden, without the slightest hint of concealment. No joke.